Hello, and welcome to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club. My name is Courtney, and I'll be your host. I hope everybody had an amazing Valentine's Day. It's the 12th when I'm recording this right now, and I plan to spend the evening of the 14th with my husband in a blanket fort reading manga and drinking pineapple ciders, so wish me luck. Hopefully we can reenact some of the scenes from this month's Manhwa of the month. If we're both lucky. I definitely found some things that I found intriguing in here. Anyways, to jump right into this, our manhwa of the month for February is Punch Drunk Love. This is an instant fucking favorite. I am obsessed. This is not the first work that I've read by this author. The first work that I read by this author was actually The New Recruit, which is another favorite of mine. So thank you, Lexi, for recommending these to me. This author so far is batting 100%. It's written by Moscareto, and the art is illustrated by Akdong. And I can't tell you how gorgeous this book is. I'm really glad that I decided to read the physicals and pick this up in stores. I got it at Barnes & Noble's. You can also read this on Manta and Legend. So if you're more of an online reader, that's where you can find this. But I would absolutely recommend, if you're into collecting manhwa or manga, that you go pick this up at the store. There's 2 volumes available now, and then there's a 3rd to be released in June. So great one to add to your collection. I absolutely recommend it. It's full color. It is censored, but I will tell you it doesn't really matter because it's so spicy that there's almost nothing you could do to take away from how spicy it is. If you haven't read the blog yet, make sure that you go check that out at thedelusionalboyfriendbookclub.com. We always release a blog before the podcast episode, so that's posted and ready for you to go check out. You can subscribe there so that you never miss one of our blogs, and you can also subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Subscribe now so you never miss a video. If you're listening on your podcast app, it's really helpful if you subscribe on there. It will automatically download and it will notify you that there's a new episode. And also if you rate, review, and subscribe on those, it helps other people find the book club so that we can all talk about this together. With that said, let's jump right into our spoiler-free summary. Our main characters work at a company called DM Electronics, and so obviously the main trope here is going to be workplace. It's also going to be a rom-com. This is one of the funniest BLs I've ever read. I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's endearing, and we've got 2 adult characters. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I will only pick up explicit content that features adults. I really don't like anything set in high school. That goes for our romance novels as well. So both adults, they are in a workplace together, and the maybe spiciest trope going on here is the experience versus inexperience. We have the superior in the workplace, Tae Moon, who is a manager of sorts, and then we have our main character, Seonwoo, and Seonwoo is like an accountant, I believe, and he's mid-level. He's very happy being complacent in life. He doesn't really want to move upwards and outwards. He just wants to be average at everything he does. And with that being said, his love life is extremely average, so much so that it's non-existent. He is a virgin, and I'm not quite sure what the age gap is here. I'm not sure that it says it explicitly, but I do think that the supervisor is a bit older than the employee. They do work together. They don't seem to be in the exact same department. But he does have a bit of a power dynamic going on. He is, our main character is the subordinate of our male lead. So with that, you've got this power dynamic, which usually plays to the benefit of the supervisor. I love that this story subverts a lot of the usual tropes. We also have hot nerd going on. Our main character wears glasses, and to everybody else and to himself, he thinks he's perfectly average, nothing special going on here. But once you take his glasses off, nobody can help but notice that he's gorgeous, absolutely adorable, stunning. But he wears baggy clothes, he doesn't really know how to dress himself, and he doesn't exactly put himself out there in social situations, so people haven't quite caught on to what a stud he is yet. Probably the hardest trope to get behind with most stories is going to be a miscommunication trope. And this story has miscommunication at the heart of it, but it's in a comedic way. I'm telling you, the comedy and the rom-com is really played up here, and the miscommunication goes toward all of that humor and towards the dynamic between them. It creates a lot of tension, so the miscommunication isn't frustrating at all. It serves the plot, and as a reader, knowing what we know and knowing that the characters don't quite have all of the information on each other, it is really funny. It's a device that I think is used super well. The story wouldn't be the same without it, so it's not your typical miscommunication when you're begging them to just talk to each other. In fact, it's all making you laugh, and you're pretty happy that it's there and being used the way it is. Our last trope that I want to talk about is my personal favorite, BDSM. So this story, I know that's not everybody's favorite, but it's absolutely what's at play here. Our main character is a virgin, but he is definitely interested in this kind of world of kink or world of BDSM or rough play or rough sex or just having a domineering partner. So that definitely plays into the story. If that's something that you usually enjoy, this is a story for you. I'm so glad it was recommended to me because my friend Lexi knows how much I love those. If that's not your thing, if you're not into rough play or kink or BDSM, you might not understand these characters, and it might not be for you. I do urge you to give it a chance though, because it's not full out. The stuff they're doing is, I would say, just touching on the world of BDSM. Really, it's kind of just establishing the boss as the domineering counterpart and the employee as the subservient counterpart. And they're kind of exploring what it means to be in that kind of kinky relationship as they go on together. So anyways, those are our spoiler-free. I'm sorry, they're not totally spoiler-free, but those are our tropes, just so you know exactly what you're getting into. As far as trigger warnings go, there's nothing about this that triggered me. I thought that everything going on was full of consent. There is a little bit of manipulation, which could trigger some people, with the main character concealing some facts from the male lead to try to get him into a relationship with him. Again, it's nothing too serious, nothing too strong. So I would say if you are usually triggered by stories, this one steers away from most problematic content, and is probably one that you're safe to jump into. Again, do your research online if you are triggered easily or you have serious triggers that are detrimental to your mental health. But I would say for the most part, this is a pretty safe suggestion to most people. If too much spice triggers you, then maybe this isn't for you. It is super spicy, and although it is censored, that is kind of the main point of this story, is this character exploring his sexual fascinations and his sexuality, and that comes with the sexual scenes. So if that's not something you're into, definitely be aware going into it. Getting into full spoilers. So our main character is named Sanwoo. His male lead is named Taemoon. Sanwoo is very average. He goes to work every day at the exact same time. He looks like he wears the exact same outfit, wears these kind of dorky glasses, and he is obsessed with an employee who came to work for his company 157 days ago. I know that because the character makes a huge diary entry that says Taemoon's 157th day. A little creepy, a little obsessive, but who amongst us can't relate to that? So Taemoon is the object of our main character's affection, and the main character, Sanwoo, he writes up to 3-page diary entries at work about this guy, so verging a little bit on stalkerish behavior, but I would say for the most part, it's very innocent. The two work together without much interaction, but it does seem that Taemoon notices this guy is obsessed with him and just doesn't pay it much mind, doesn't feel like it's worth his time. But one day we have our main character being kind of written up for being too strict about the accounting he's doing and causing waves with another person in the department. And Taemoon steps in to try to smooth this over so that there's no HR complaints and nobody gets in more trouble than they need to be in. Taemoon takes Sanwoo into a conference room and has a talk with him, and for a moment needs to step out of the conference room and leaves his phone face up on the table like a total noob. I don't know who in their right mind would be leaving their cell phone out with a subordinate around if they had anything to hide. But he does have something that he's kind of hiding. Everyone thinks he's such a prince at work, the supervisor Tae-moon. They think he's gorgeous, and he doesn't really let on to his personal life at all. But in this moment, San-woo looks over at his phone and sees a notification from a gay dating app. When he sees that notification, he can't help but read the context. And it says in there, use me however you want. And it's basically a guy begging for rough sex from the male lead, Tae-moon. San-woo is a virgin, but he is a virgin who is extremely interested in rough sex. In all of his fantasy life, the content he consumes, the BLs he reads, the movies he watches are all with a domineering partner. And so when he sees that text, he is overjoyed that the man he is in love with not only is on a gay dating app, confirming that he's interested in men, but also that he seems to be interested in this BDSM world that he himself is wanting to break into. So when he enters back to the conference room, San-woo cannot help himself from saying out loud, do you have sex with men? He's super blunt about it. And Tae-moon is like, what are you talking about? What do you know that I haven't let on to you? And San-woo says, I just have to be honest. I saw what was on your phone and I want to let you know that I'm very interested in you. And I would love if you used me the way you're using this other person. I think we would have a good time together. Tae-moon is pissed off about this. He feels like he's being blackmailed, which is a little bit of the miscommunication. San-woo is not blackmailing him. He doesn't really have, I think, that in his personality to be malicious, but he kind of rolls with it when he sees that angle's kind of working on Tae-moon. Tae-moon says, okay, so you'll keep this quiet between us if I do have sex with you. And he's like, yes. So he later on asks him to meet him out in the parking garage. They meet in the car and Tae-moon's teeth kind of come out. His claws come out, so to speak. And he says, San-woo, I know you're blackmailing me, and I think you're going to regret it. If you sleep with me, I'm going to be so rough to you. You're not going to enjoy it. And San-woo is in his head, this is where the comedy comes in. San-woo is constantly calculating how to get this man to sleep with him, how to get him to be rough, and how to get him not to catch on that that's exactly what he wants. He thinks to himself, oh, if he knows how badly I want to be with him, or if he knows that I want it rough, it's going to take all the fun out of it for him. So I have to pretend to not know what I want, and I have to pretend to be a little bit more innocent than I am. Even though he's a virgin, he thinks that if Tae-moon knows that he wants it rough, he'll never give it to him as rough as he actually does with other people. So he's kind of calculated. He's pretty tricky. I would go so far as to say he's manipulating the situation to work out in his favor, but tricky might be better than manipulative because, again, it's all pretty lighthearted. So they agree to hook up, and he says Tae-moon says this is just a one-off, and he takes him to the dirtiest motel he can think of. And in Tae-moon's head, he's thinking, if I give it to this guy rougher than he's ever used to, and I take him to the dirtiest love motel, he'll be so humiliated by me, he'll never ask me to do this again, and I can get this nerd off my plate. So they go to a love motel, and there, Tae-moon takes him in the shower and realizes that he is San-woo is extremely inexperienced and not very skillful at what he's doing. And he kind of tosses him on the bed and his glasses fall off. And he sees him then for the first time. And he's like, oh my God, you're gorgeous. So you must get around. And San-woo is a little bit reluctant to let on to his full inexperience. And then Tae-moon comes right out and asks him, he's like, how experienced are you? How big have you taken one? Because from the looks of your body and your face, you probably get a lot, and you've probably been around the block. And San-woo in his head is like, my face and body, are they that great? And let me tell you guys, they are. Both characters in this are gorgeous. From their face to their body, to their aura, to their personality, they're both so lovable, so endearing, very sexy. So yes, they're both gorgeous. And San-woo takes that moment to be honest, and he's like, I actually haven't been with anybody. And the top in the story, the supervisor, he's like, oh, now you're going to lie to me. You're going to feign this innocence. And Sunwoo's trying to be honest. He's trying to say, I am a virgin. And this guy doesn't believe him. He thinks he's lying. He's like, oh, he's trying to be cute, acting all innocent, acting all pure. But he really is. So for his first time, this man goes rough on him. And the scenes are impeccably spicy. There's a lot of hand stuff going on, a lot of warm-up play. And there is this thing with censored manhwas and uncensored manga and manhwa where there's like a bussy going on. So there's like the main member and the balls. And then under that is like the shaft, but they draw it almost like a woman's downstairs. And to me, those are always like my favorite illustrations because it does allow me to see a little bit of myself in there. And I think it, maybe because it's written by a woman, it allows us this kind of duality where we see the character both as a male and also can see ourselves in that character. There's some gender euphoria, gender play, I think, happening with the way that they draw this, because not all artists decide to draw characters like that. But this artist did, and I absolutely love it. I think it's giving a little bit lady down there, while still having all the other parts going on. And if you're like super into this kind of kinky stuff, you might be aware of like futa, which is characters drawn to have both parts, male and women parts. So it's a fictional thing, and it is not really to do with anything in real life as far as intersex or trans people. It's, I feel like, kind of in this realm of its own. But I do love that art. I think it's really spicy. And in the intimate scenes, even though the banana and the apples are whited out, that bottom part is not. And so you do get a lot of explicit imagery. At the end of their interaction at the motel, Taemoon throws money at Sunwoo and he says, get yourself some ointment and a cab. I'm leaving, and tries to treat him as poorly as possible to humiliate him, to try to make this a clean break so they don't have any more interactions and they can go back to normal at work. Sunwoo, being the little freak he is, grabs the money and he's like, oh, my first present from Taemoon. He's so obsessed with him, he doesn't even recognize that he's supposed to be humiliated. In fact, he's into the humiliation. He has fantasized about being made to cry by this man and has been fantasizing about this guy being as mean to him as possible. And he's been manipulating the situation to make sure that his own behavior aggravates this man so that he is as rough as possible and as angry as possible. He loves his angry face and he's doing whatever he can to pull that out of Taemoon. So he grabs the money, and the next day at work, he goes up to him and hands it back to him and says, oh, I couldn't take your money. And he's like, aren't you humiliated by the way I treated you? And he's like, no, not at all. In fact, I think you should give me one more chance, and some of those acts, which I was not so skillful with, I'll be better at this time. Taemoon is kind of confused as to why this is all happening, but takes him up on the second offer. And when they're talking in the car on their way to the next location where they're going to hook up, there's another miscommunication which happens where Taemoon asks, like, you're so beautiful. How do you not understand that you're so hot? Are you really naive? Or are you just pretending to not know that you're so hot? And Sunwoo is like, what are you talking about? My family always told me that living an ordinary life was the best life, and I believe that, and those are my principles. And in Taemoon's head, he's like, his family must have thought he was so beautiful, they abused him and made him wear these ugly glasses and treated him lesser than, and that's why he doesn't understand his true value and his true beauty. So Taemoon starts to get this false narrative in his head about the bottom. Sunwoo has this false narrative in his head that Taemoon is really into BDSM, when it turns out that that text at the beginning of the story was really just like a one-off relationship he had with a hookup, and he's not really that experienced in BDSM. So we have both of these characters reading into each other things that are not actually true, but it's making for a ton of steamy content and a ton of really great tension that we can follow as an audience. At the end of this book, we see them go from the car to a love hotel, which is a lot less sleazy than the love motel they were first in, which shows you that Tae-moon is actually trying to up his treatment of this guy. Consciously or subconsciously, he's treating him better than he did the first time, and he's getting more into it himself. He has less of an excuse that this is about blackmail, and he seems really genuinely interested in it for himself. And he says, oh, maybe if I just hear him apologize and cry one more time while I'm giving it to him, then I can surely be done with this. Not knowing that the bottom also is into apologizing and crying and wants to be made to look like that and feel like that. So both of them have the same desire, just both of them think they're tricking the other. I love this story so much. I felt like the spice is at the forefront, which a lot of the times that's what I'm looking for. I read as an escape, and this is my dirty pleasure. So I love when there's a high level of smut in a story, and that's definitely this. I love when there's a high level of comedy, so I can use it as escapism from the real world, which is pretty depressing most of the time. So I really love the comedy going on in this, and I would recommend it like 10 out of 10 to everybody. If this sounded like something you're into and you haven't read it yet, absolutely go pick it up. I will be reading the second one, and if you guys want to hear a mini episode on that, just go to our website and leave in the discussion forum on this episode, hey, we want to hear a mini episode when you get done reading book 2. And even if nobody wants to hear it, I'll probably end up doing one anyways, just a lot shorter than this one. So that wraps up our summary for the story. Now on to my favorite section, the delusional boyfriend section. From this story, my delusional boyfriend is absolutely Tae-moon. Tae-moon is a little bit older gentleman, like I want to say he's mid-30s, which perfect age for me. He is very experienced and he's very active in his sexuality, which is something I love in a man. And he's rich, which is always a cherry on top for me. I'm not going to sit here in front and pretend that I don't love a man with money. He's also very willing to do what his partner is into and kind of explore things. We learn that about him throughout the book. And we see that with the main character, he is definitely willing to play into this kind of character or role play. My delusional boyfriend from this story is absolutely Tae-moon. I would also definitely date Tae-moon in real life. He is somebody you could introduce to your parents. He could support you. He, I think, would treat you well outside of role play in the bedroom. So yes, in real life, absolutely. This is I would say a green flag boyfriend. As far as how he compares to my other delusional boyfriends from Manhwa, right now, number 1 is still Taewon from Banana Scandal. And I would say Tae-moon doesn't dethrone him yet, but by the time I get to the end of volume 2, when volume 3 comes out in June, I think he definitely could. Taewon is a bit younger. He's a college guy, college-aged person. He is absolutely into the rougher side of intimate interactions. But Tae-moon, like I said, a bit older, more experienced, definitely diving into the world of BDSM more. I think that he has a chance to dethrone my number 1. Absolutely. The main character from this story, yet again, is one I can relate to. He's tricky, he's kinky, and I would not date the main character just because I think he's too type A for me, but I do love him. And with that, I just want to say thank you all for listening during this podcast. It has been so much fun, and it's been a really great way for me to read some of the series that I had on my list, and my list was getting so daunting. I didn't know what story to read when, which one should come first, and being able to line this out all in the calendar has really organized my ADHD, and it's been really fun for me to hear from you guys on our socials and start to create this community together. With that being said, if you're not following us on our socials, please go follow us. We're super active on TikTok and pretty active on Instagram as well. Also, this YouTube is, if you're listening to this on a podcast, all of these episodes are available on YouTube. So subscribe and follow us wherever you find us. Also, if you rate and review, give us a little sentence review that says, I love their manhwa episodes, I love their romance novel episodes. It can help people with SEO when they're searching for yaoi podcast, when your comment comes up that says, finally, a yaoi podcast. So rating, reviewing, subscribing really helps us create this community and make it bigger and bigger so that more people can be in on the discussions and we can get more lively interaction in our discussion boards and we can find more things that you guys are interested in talking about. The next manhwa for our manhwa of the month, which will be March's manhwa, is going to be Our Sunny Days. I'm really excited for it. I think it's pretty fluffy and I cannot wait to have like a feel-good story. As we're finishing out the winter, I need these feel-good stories to kind of give me my dopamine push. So please join along for that. Our blogs are always released on the 1st, the 11th, and the 21st, and our podcasts are always released on the 5th, the 15th, and the 25th. So make sure you follow along. You can find all of the titles we're covering each month at the delusionalboyfriendbookclub.com. There's a tab that says DBBC calendar, and that calendar, it has everything that we're reading for the entire year, whether it's our manga of the month, our anime of the month, our manhwa of the month, or our romance novel. So check out there what we're reading next and stay up to date with us. Again, thanks so much for listening, and until next time, remember, sometimes the delusion is the solution. Bye.